Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Tuesday, March 26th, 2024. I am Jer Stays, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. As we do once a week, it is always good to catch up with Fletcher Sharpe to talk about the sports side of things. And Fletcher, man, what a week. We've got a lot to talk about. NFL, couple of things happening in town, as well as Detroit City FC. But first, how are you doing, man? How's Ramadan treating you?
We're a little bit over halfway. So, there's some good, there's some bad, but the point is just to persevere nonetheless, and that's what I'm going to do until the evening of April 9th.
Fair. Let's start out with what I think is one of the wackiest stories. I mean, troubling stories, but crazy story. As of recording this, we still don't know where Cam Sutton is, the former cornerback for the Detroit Lions. We also learn when the organization found out about this whole situation of the alleged charges in Florida, some pretty serious charges, that apparently Cam Sutton was in the workout room, like doing strength training, and he was actually talked to by team officials being like, hey, you should turn yourself in. You should get some whatever, right? And I'm just sitting here going, wait, what? Because it's not like this is like a drunken disorderly. It's not like this is some parking tickets or something. Like, these are some pretty serious allegations, which you can look up on your own. Our show is pretty family friendly, I know, so I'm not diving into it unnecessarily, but if you want to look it up, it's serious stuff. I almost cannot believe he was in Allen Park when this was out there, Fletcher Sharpe.
I mean, we're gonna have to. I mean, don't want to choose to per se. I don't want to sound like one of those tinfoil truthers, but it feels really weird that when these charges went public, he was in Allen Park doing strength training. If that's the case, why was there like a manhunt for his location? Like, why were they for the next few days until now?
There's still a manhunt as we're recording this.
I mean, like, why is it like, oh, where's Cam Sutton? Where's Cam Sutton? I feel like at that point, again, the alleged crimes, you can look up for yourself. To preface, not great, if true. But if you find out about that and there's someone who, like, did these things, maybe you should be like, hey, he's here. Especially if, you're not going to keep the player. Like, if there's some sort of loyalty to the player, I understand there have been situations where players have done some pretty heinous crimes and teams have elected to stand by them. If you're going to do that, then I understand being like, oh, we'll say something later, give a little smokescreen distraction. But, like, if you have thoughts you might cut this guy, why did you wait to then cut him and then say something? Like, what happened between now and then where you were like, oh, yeah, we can't hold on to this guy anymore?
I wonder if he turns himself in, that they let the process play out more. I wonder if that was part of the calculus. I think that's got to be.
Sure, but also if by you doing the actions you did, you kind of helped make the decision for him. I mean, if you'd said something earlier like, oh, he's in Allen Park when they were scouring half of Florida to go find him, maybe he turns himself in quicker. Maybe you still have the player on the roster. I feel like it was a bit more of a business decision. I don't want to say it was malicious where they're like, go do something about this man. Let's wait a few days. All right, we're going to cut him now. Nonetheless, it's a very sad story and hopefully gets rectified the proper way. It's just really, to me, I won't be able to get over that for a little bit, that when they were looking and the internet became a big thing because the police department down in Florida was like, we cannot find him. We've been calling his number. His family member haven't heard from him, so we're opening up to social media to open this up. When that broke, the fact that he was in Allen Park doing strength training at the Lions facility, I don't know. That's really strange to me. I don't have a proper word to think of right now. The strange is the best thing I can think of.
Maybe, and this is just a thought, I know that some people have kind of put that out there. I don't know if I agree with it, but were the Lions trying not to be snitches?
I mean, maybe they were trying not to be snitches, but like the whole viewpoint behind snitching is like, I don't say anything, whatever. But like, if your friend is running because he stole a backpack or, like was drunk in public and you're trying to find him or, got in like a bar fight or something, maybe. But like for this serious crime, I'm not saying you should sing like a canary, but like you should say something a little bit more promptly than you did, because serious crimes, when people commit those and you don't say anything, like it leaves it open to potentially worse things happening.
There isn't a great segue for this, but there is now talk about who could replace Cam. We talked a little bit about it on a previous episode, but more and more buzz across multiple outlets, and this is also something that was brought up by Dave Burkett over at the Free Press, but it's caught on a bit. The idea of picking up Marshon Lattimore from New Orleans to fill this gap in time. There's some like technicalities as far as the trade and what would work with the money and whatever. But first thoughts, Fletcher Sharpe, Marshon Lattimore to the Lions. What do you think?
Everyone else we talked about the Lions bringing in, I was like, I don't know, too old. Marshon Lattimore, yes. He has experience being a number one corner, 2017 Rookie of the Year, been an All-Pro for 2017 to 2021, naturally experienced a bit of a downturn just because New Orleans defense just got worse. And they went from being like a quality side to just, what they are now. But he has experience being a number one corner. He's someone you could put out there on an island and more often than not win his battles. Obviously, you have some situations where like against someone like the Buccaneers or someone else with a very tall receiver like Mike Evans. Obviously, you might lose a bit more of those and win because just the way physics works. But he's someone who can get in there, and he, especially someone like him, could allow the two players they signed, Carlton Davis and Amik Robinson, like just be the dog they are, whether it's on the opposite side or whether it's in the nickel position, which is the third cornerback. Just go in there and just maul people. They don't have to be the ones who take the top receiver. The top receiver is being taken by someone who knows what they're doing, which would be a definite upgrade over having Cam Sutton last year just not do what he was supposed to do, or CJ Gardner-Johnson, who honestly I think was really there just to hit people, much less cover people. Very much an upgrade, but yeah, his contract is about like $97 million right now, so they have a lot to figure out to make that work. But if they can, it'll make losing Snead a lot easier to swallow.
Now, the owners' meeting is happening, and there were a couple of things that came up. One is that the owners are banning something called the hip drop tackle, and the other is a change to the challenges rules, something the Lions actually asked for, so that if any one of your two challenges are successful, you get a third. Thoughts on either one of those? Because these are, like, the hip drop tackle has been something that's been discussed a lot as being maybe a little bit too rough, a little too dangerous for the NFL.
Number one, on challenges, I could take or leave him, honestly. I thought it'd be a great integration into the league, a chance to, like, a play happened here that you thought wasn't whatever. Let's throw the red flag. But, like, there's so many things that you should be able to challenge that you can't just because you can't. So I feel like, in a way, it just slows down the game. Like, when it first became a thing, some coaches used them a lot. And you notice, like, the amount of times they're used as of late have gone down significantly because there's really not much. The things you want to challenge, you can't. And the things you can are, like, I don't want to say inconsequential, but, like, they don't matter as much. Now, to the hip drop tackle, I feel weird about it because I understand why, safety-wise, why you don't want that to happen, because that's actually, if I remember correctly, close to how Terrell Owens tore his leg up. There was like a mix of a horse collar and a hip drop where they kind of grabbed it and kind of swung into his legs to pull him down. I don't like that. That's dirty. But sometimes when someone's running and they run you over and you grab whatever you can, a hip drop just happens naturally. I'm not saying that, like, a horse collar tackle, that does not happen naturally. You cannot naturally grab the back of someone's jersey and then pull them down. Like, or the back of their neck and pull them. That's not natural. But, like, trying to tackle someone who's bigger than you, like, this is what has to happen sometimes. It's either you do that or you do what Kirby Joseph did and you go low and you hit in the leg and then people call you dirty because you blew someone's leg up, or you get run over. I'm not saying that, like, it should be safer. My only issue is it's going to lead to more flags. Someone's going to get hit and knocked over and they're going to go to try to pull someone down and the ref's going to be like, hip drop tackle, even when it's not necessarily the same thing. It makes me, I don't know, it kind of slants the game towards the offense a bit more than it already is, and that just makes me feel kind of weird about it. But I am all for safety. I will say that.
Let's change gears here, talk a little bit of Michigan basketball, because there is a new head coach. It is Dusty May. I listened to an interview from a Florida radio station before this show, and I thought it was a real nice touch that he was so kind about his time at Florida Athletic University. He had a very good record there. And in this interview, I thought it was interesting because he talked about, well, one, he's getting a huge pay bump. It was like $1.25 million with like some extra percentage ups that were possible at FAU. He's getting a lot more than that at Michigan. And he actually highlighted the idea of like, hey, this is an opportunity for generational wealth. And it's really hard when they're throwing that many millions at you to say no. I got to be honest, from that interview, I love to go look at local coverage from someone's going. And I'm like, from that interview, I'm like, you know what? I like this guy.
before I say anything, I'll say this. People want to talk about players and NIL deals in the transfer portal. This guy literally lost with Florida Atlantic and like not less than like 4 days later took a new job. That's kind of crazy. But I will say this, he turned Florida Atlantic around. Their first 3 years, 17-16, 17-15, 13-10, not so great. Then 19-15, and then they took off in 2022, 2023, made it to the Final Four with a 35-4 record, which kind of put them up there. They transferred to the American Athletic Conference, got knocked out in the first round, but like still had a pretty solid year at 25-9. He recruits well. He can get the smaller players and make them play a bit above, their high school rankings. With Michigan, he shouldn't have a problem getting some 5-star players. Do know that he's definitely loving the alumni network in terms of helping with recruitment. He thinks it'll overpower the NIL deals that other places have. And to some degree, he's right. Like Michigan fans, for sure, they love their sports. If you're doing well, they will do whatever they can to help support and pour money into. They will help enhance the NIL deals where it's like we have companies that we want players to have our faces across. Conversely, when you do poorly, oh man, there is not a rock for you to hide under. Hopefully he can take the magic he took with Florida Atlantic and impose that upon Michigan and kind of get them back on the right track, because I'm all for Michigan or Michigan State basketball. The state of Michigan, I want them to do well in most sports because it's fun to root for people that, live where you live.
I thought it was interesting, too, that he lived in Ann Arbor for a little while, and I guess one of his kids was born in Ann Arbor, so he knows what he's walking into.
Yeah, he was an assistant at Eastern in 2005, 2006. So right after he finished doing some stuff with Bobby Knight. So yeah, he understands what it's like to, one, coach with someone who might be a little bit insane. And then also the atmosphere that Ann Arbor presents around sports, because people really care.
I mean, until you get into it, people don't know. It is an animal unto its own, man. There are a couple of events to check out this weekend in Detroit sports. They're a little special. The first one's, does not come around all the time. The Midwestern Regionals for the NCAA tournament is going to be at Little Caesars Arena. This is, of course, a mini preview to when we're going to be hosting the Final Four in 2027. That Final Four will be actually at Ford Field. Now, also this weekend will be the kickoff of the Michigan Panthers season at Ford Field. Fletcher, we haven't talked about the Panthers much. We might end up going to some games and things, but before we get into the season, a couple of highlights.
Last year, they finished 4-6, kind of limped into the playoffs, but still made the playoffs. 4-6 is not great. They look to improve on that. They have some new faces, some familiar faces. Back at QB, EJ Perry, also Brian Lewerke, Michigan State. They have Kai Nakua, who, if his last name sounds familiar, his brother plays for the Los Angeles Rams. Pretty solid safety in his own right, playing with the Panthers. Frank Ginda, who was the heart and soul of the team, is back. He tried to play with the Atlanta Falcons during the offseason. Apparently nothing took hold, which is sad for him, but the Panthers profit. Same with Breland Speaks and Cole Hikatuni, two players who had chances with NFL rosters on practice squads and just didn't take. They look to play against the St. Louis Battlehawks this weekend, who are from the XFL. So yeah, this should be an exciting game. St. Louis is led by AJ McCarron, who a lot of people will remember as a flame out in the NFL, but as the best game manager in Alabama football history at quarterback. So it should be an exciting game. I think the Panthers have enough to take this game. I'm still not necessarily sure how much, because the UFL, as it's now being called, is rapidly changing. But it should be a very exciting game, and people are very excited about it. As we mentioned before, I went to one of their off-season meetings with the head coach and everyone, and it was full. I mean, obviously it wasn't full of like 20,000 people, but for a suburban community college theater to be full of voices asking questions, albeit some of them maybe not football questions, lets you know people really do care and they're excited about this.
Well, and I did see the Panthers mascot at the Corktown St. Patrick's Day parade a few weeks ago.
And they were at LCA watching a Pistons game recently as well. So like, they're really ramping up the presence, and like before people would see the logo and be like, what's that? Now people see the Panthers and they know what it is. And that's all you can really ask for, honestly, growing up in the second division.
I mean, geez, I was at a bar event a few weeks ago and there were like multiple people wearing Panthers jerseys and they did not look like they were part of the team. You know what I mean? So It's interesting to see them catch on because you know what? This town is absolutely crazy about football. So I'm interested to go check it out, man. Now, let's finish the show up with a little Detroit City FC. We were at a very, snow cleared Keyworth, but more than 75 volunteers came out to clear the stands for a crowd of 6,231. Now, the VIP sections had a bunch of snowbanks in them, but I think that just added to the character. It was a 2-1 win over Loudoun for Le Rouge. I honestly liked a lot of what I saw. And yes, I will also note that I believe that blue is part of this uniform, I think for good, because I did not realize this, but the shorts are also blue for the jerseys with a very strong gold. New look, and it seems like even a new look for the team in 2024.
Yeah, when I saw a mock-up of the jersey, the shorts looked a bit lighter than black, but did not look like they were dark blue, but I guess we should have probably thought about that when we saw the chevron. But yeah, continuing from their first strong step of the season, they played well. Obviously, they gave up a goal early on off of mistake from Le Jope, which is not great. It's not awesome, and he's got to start looking before he passes the ball. That was not a great mistake to make, but they made up for it quickly. He made up for it quickly. In the second half, turnover occurred. Maxi got the ball who played to Elvis Amo. He played a nice one touch to Lay, who's honestly becoming way more reliable shooting from deep than he used to be. There used to be a time where if you saw him go to shoot, you're like, oh no. Whereas now, like 3 of his last 4 goals have been from deep just like that. And it's like, you know what? You've earned the right to do that. You've earned the right putting the ball in frame, and he hit a swirling missile that started out outside the post and curled back in past the keeper into the net. The second goal that came, the game-winning goal, the ball got forced back to Farreau, the keeper for Loudoun. Elvis Amo doing something that has not been done by Detroit City FC forward in some time, pressed the keeper, which deflected the ball to Maxi Rodriguez, who literally probably could have somersaulted the ball into the net. He was so wide open. Thankfully, he chose just to tap it in, and they won 2-1. Elvis looked great that game, but not just Elvis Amo. James Murphy in the midfield, yeah. I wondered what it would look like putting him in the pivot area next to Lay and pushing Maxi up the field. It's perfect because all the deficiencies that like Maxi had defensively, like he can play some defense, but he's really more of a central attacking player. James Murphy makes up for those. So when Lay wants to go forward and all his marauding runs, James can stay there. If someone wants to play a pass from the back, James can play that pass. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he's Zinedine Zidane. But for what this team needs, he allows them to be able to do that because he balances getting back defensively with some nice passing from the middle. And that's really all you want from a player in his position. And it allows other players to do what they need to do well. And Elvis Amo, as I mentioned many, many times before, he's not great because he scores goals, but he's great because of his movement. Like he makes runs whether he's getting the ball or not. He makes runs to open up for his teammates. He makes runs to get the ball and then give it back to somebody else. If he had played with DCFC last year, probably would have scored 12 goals in Trevor's offense because Trevor's offense was built for a player like that. Unfortunately, DCFC did not have a player on the roster who could do those things, so as a result, they struggled. This team looks very different. Obviously, it's only been 2 games, but just seeing the way they played and seeing the way they held tough at the end to grind out another 2-1 victory, this looks like it could be a very good season for them.
I hope so, but just by the eye test, this feels like a different team and it feels like a different setup. I mean, honestly, how they even move the ball up. You were talking about Trevor's offense. There are things that are a little bit there, and you've got some players that came over, but this literally looks like a different team on the outside.
No, it's because the problem they had last year was because their midfield was not very great at retaining the ball or holding on to the ball. They elected to just skip the midfield and kick it up to the forwards and say, okay, hold on to the ball till we get up there. And the problem with that is if you lose the ball while everyone's pressing forward, you get counterattacked. And it's very easy to get counterattacked. You just got to nick the ball away and give it to someone who's fast, which most of these teams have at least 1 or 2 fast players. This time, they're moving the ball up slowly. Like, yes, they might kick the ball further than normal, but it's a pass from a defender to a midfielder to a midfielder to a midfielder to a forward player back to a midfielder. Instead of it just being a defender. Like, one of the best goals they scored in Trevor's reign as coach was against Birmingham, where the ball got hoofed up the field. It was Nate to Maxi to Reese to Hopino. The ball touched 4 people but traveled the length of the field. That's not good soccer. It's exciting sometimes, for sure, but like that lets it be known you're kicking and hoping. And it's like, someone's open, I hope he gets to the ball first. The way they're playing now is way different. They're playing passes to people expecting him to be there. They're playing passes to people who are within their sight line. They're not just hoofing balls and hoping they gets there. That's why Lay's pass that ended up being a goal for Loudon was so disappointing, because they'd been playing well, passing the ball until he made one no-look pass, and he should have looked, obviously. But he didn't do that again the rest of the game, and the team didn't. And you want to see them play like that. Like, in terms of proper ball, I don't want to hyperbole it. They're playing proper ball right now. If they go out and lose a game, they'll lose a game 2-1 or 1-0 or something. But it'll be a very close game that they fought hard. It won't be one of those games where they get blown out 4 or 5-0 because they're hoofing up the field and hoping that they can just play defense the rest of the game.
This weekend, they're heading to Indianapolis, Indy 11. Thoughts?
They've struggled against Indy 11 as a professional side. They beat them when they were bad, but last year and this year, they've struggled against them. They had a friendly against them behind closed doors. They did not go well for them. I'm sure probably because they were trying some new things. I'm sure Indy was as well. So now that they settled on a starting lineup, starting 11, hopefully they can carry that in there and play against an Indy team who has been pretty good so far. People have been pretty high in Detroit this season. Everyone has. Like, every single person is like, well, they look so different. I think they get a draw. I think a draw is good, especially given the demons they've had against Indianapolis in that city. A draw is good. I'm seeing 1-1, and a hard-fought game in the Midwest weather.
Fletcher Sharpe, so good to talk with you, man. Good to catch up.
Of course, thanks for having me.
As always, thank you to our listeners, and thank you to our members at Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit, who help keep this thing going. With that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody. Take care of each other, and we'll talk tomorrow.